Hi, nice to see you. Lovely to see you here,
Nice to
Terry.
meet you.
For everybody that's watching, I'm Jules from Proud2Be, and this is our video interviews that we're going to be showing in the run up to Pride. So we'll get started, and I'm going to hand you over to this lovely lady. So would you like to tell me something about yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Terry Lamerton. I identify as trans female. I did battle with how to identify, and something that I have realized is that it's not all about labels, and it's just I would prefer to just say I'm a Terry. It's like
That's fine. Yeah.
Fit in the box. I'm quite old now, and I realize that a lot of people watching this would probably be a lot younger than me. But you know, I've kind of lived through the 80s, and it wasn't a nice place to be.
Yeah.
As far as like my job and stuff like that, when I came out, it was good. And I work as a technical consultant for an IT company, and I work with the Met Office. Met Office are found to be very, very inclusive. They're a great company to work with, as are a lot of companies that I've found so far.
Cool.
2 kids. My kids have been amazing. They've both been very accepting of me. My daughter particularly is a very strong ally for all of the LGBT community. My son's getting there as well.
So when and how did you come out, if you did? Because some people just sort of go along and just let other people figure it out. And like, who was the first person you came out to, and what sort of reaction did you get?
So I kind of experimented for quite a long time. Like I say, I was 8 when I kind of realized that I wasn't quite like everybody else. And it wasn't until I was 15 that I realized that I was transgender, but I didn't do anything about it. Like a lot of people, I just buried it and thought that I could cope with it until, you know, I don't know what I thought really. I know I planned to transition at 30, and now I'm almost 50. It's like, well, that didn't work out quite so well. But then timekeeping's never been my forte. So then I started to experiment with going out, and I went around to some trans support groups. So I went along to Safe Haven, this first one, Proud2Be.
Yeah.
Met other trans people and started to talk to them, and then realized, that I am trans. It's definitely trans. So then I started to go out more. I went, down into Plymouth, around the more the LGBT kind of places. Made some great friends. And then it was about 2 years ago I started to actually physically transition, but I didn't tell anybody, and I kept it as secret as I could.
Yeah.
But it kind of got to the point where I just couldn't carry on anymore. So in the end, I had like a weekend where I was just walking around crying. I just got to come out now.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I got in contact with my mum and asked her partner to leave the house so I could go and speak to her.
Right.
And I was in Terry mode then. I just turned up and she just gave me a big hug, and it was really good. It was brilliant. So I came out to my mum, and then straight after that I thought, I'm gonna have to come out to my sister. And then I wasn't sure how my dad was going to take it, but he didn't even realize I was dressed differently when I turned up. And I spoke to my kids, and my kids were absolutely amazing. So in your head you build up all this stuff that's going to happen, and the world didn't stop spinning. Everything just carried on. Everybody's just accepted me, and it's been absolutely brilliant, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good to hear. I mean, it's still it's a big thing, isn't it? And like you say, you sort of the sort of fear of what people might say, and especially those like close to you, and what they might think. And it is a big thing.
It's a massive, right? It feels like a massive thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of more, it's in your head. I don't know. I don't know. And I know that I've been very lucky with, like, because I've always brought my kids up to be very inclusive. And I know my ex-wife is exactly the same with the kids as well. And my family have always been very supportive of everything. They just wouldn't want me to be unhappy. And
so, that's good.
I realise not everybody's in that position. And it's,
no, that is good to hear. Yeah. Right. Okay. So you mentioned the 80s. I know the 80s
Yeah.
well. I grew up in the 80s as well. So I mean, I understand that you sort of said, you know, you knew from a very early age that you were different, but you kind of buried that side. But I mean, thinking about sort of like as you were young growing up, kind of that, knowing that in the back of your head, what was it like, you know, sort of for trans people, for LGBTQ plus people? What you know, how did you find it?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, I was very young when I like started to like cross dress, and my mum
Right,
told me off.
yeah.
Then, which kind of like, you know, you kind of realize, no, you're not allowed to do this, but it doesn't, in your head, you can't bury it. But back when, you know, I was 8, which would be like 1980s, it wasn't a great place to be, and I completely understand why my parents would be like, no, you're not one of those kind of people, because back then it was really, I can't think of what I'm trying to say. It's, you know, it was a bad thing to be, and like nobody understood it. And if you were gay or LGBT or just different, then you were kind of demonized in society. And, you know, that was quite hard, because at school, you know, if you were labeled as gay or anything like that, then you know, basically you had no friends.
Yeah, sure.
So obviously it's just that was very difficult. And I kind of blended in a bit, but when I look back on now, I just realized I was with all the kids that never fitted in.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't mind that, and like, you know, I don't have a problem with that, but I think it's a lot different now. I know my kids, they quite openly talk about their sexualities and their gender and stuff like that, and I think that's a brilliant place to be.
Yeah.
And they're very, very open about stuff. So I think we've moved forward, and you know, that for me, to coming out was like one of the things, because it's like it's okay now, and the more of us, more trans people or gay people or whatever, that are seen and being visible, it makes it easier for the next generation. And when I speak to some of my friends who are trans and gay and stuff, and it's like, you know, we all want it to be better for the next generation, and you know, by just putting our head above the parapet, hopefully it's making it better.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
with the younger generation, like, you know, fighting for us. Hopefully, you know, sunnier days are ahead.
Yeah, I mean, certainly working with the youth group, and you know, sort of their confidence around the language, just the language, and sort of, you know, they know all the different terms, they know all the different labels. And I know labels aren't important to everyone, but I think particularly when, you know, you're a young person, you're sort of searching for who you are, to have a label to latch onto is quite handy sometimes. But yeah, their confidence around all of that, and the fact that they talk about it regularly is really lovely to see. And how sort of like accepting they are of each other within their community, because, you know, I think I've found that there are quite a few divisions in the LGBTQ plus community, whereas with the young people there doesn't seem to be. Everybody's just sort of going on with it and supporting each other, which is like really nice. So
and I love the way that they're so that they just pick up on stuff. It's something that makes me laugh. I told my sister, my daughter, I said, I'm just going to put some toast into the toaster. She told me off for assuming it's gender.
Oh yeah. I'd probably get told off of gender in my camper van then, because it's a he. So whoops. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so you sort of came out quite recently, so I mean, thinking back to when you're younger, did you actually sort of spend any time with any other people that you knew were different, or you knew were sort of LGBTQ plus?
Not knowingly. What my best friend, it turned out, came out when I was about, I don't know, it's probably about 23, something like that. He came out as gay, and it was like, oh, you know, it's like that whole birds of a feather type thing. But obviously we didn't have the internet, so, you know, there was that community. It kind of was very difficult, because going into like a gay pub or whatever and not knowing anybody, that's kind of quite a hard thing. And then, you know, I'd kind of buried it quite deep. you know, and I was kind of coping okay, really, quite a long time. But yeah, you know, the internet has opened it all up, because now you've got support groups and you can make friends and you can talk about stuff, and then you can actually physically meet somebody. You know, it's and I think the internet has made things a lot easier for people, and you can go and find out about stuff as well. I mean, sure. You know, as far as like transition and stuff like that, you know, before I actually came out, there was a hell of a lot of research done, and I probably watched all of the YouTube transition videos on, you know, on YouTube, and it's, you know, it's just a lot easier now.
Yeah.
And I think that's brilliant.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, it does make a difference, doesn't it, having that community around you? I know certainly when I was growing up, it wasn't even spoken about, let alone knowing that there was, I mean, there was a community out there, but it was so hidden that, so yeah. Okay. So you mentioned sort of like school a little bit earlier on, how it was difficult for you. Can you go into that a bit more, and sort of like also how that's contrasted with work, because you said your work was quite accepting?
Yeah, I mean, school was, you know, it was just kids back then, wasn't it? It's you know, I kind of think I fitted in okay, but I don't think that I was a good fit. You know, I remember the hard times of like having to do the football and all that kind of stuff. Really hate football, and I think what I used to do was go and hide. So I had lots of different hiding places that I'd go, and in the end, I think the teachers just gave up and let me go play on the computers instead. Yeah. But I did struggle a bit with school, but it wasn't as bad as I probably portray it.
And what about work now? That's
work has been absolutely amazing, actually. So I came out. After I'd come out with my family and stuff, it was a couple of months, because I just wanted everything to settle before I go through the next thing, because coming out is really hard, and I don't think that people understand how hard it is, because you've got all of that stuff in your head where you think, oh my God, this is it. They're going to sack me, or my parents are going to leave me and I'm going to be abandoned. Yeah. And that wasn't the case. But then, you know, and obviously with the family, and then coming out again and facing that whole brick wall of stuff of not knowing what's going to happen when you come out. So I left it for a bit, and then I wrote a letter to my boss to say, you know, I've got something to tell you. So I said, I'm going to send you a letter in a minute, an email. I want you to read it, and then we'll talk.
Right. Yeah.
So I sent this letter about basically a lot of the stuff that we've covered on here. So, you know, my history and how I got to this point, and then I put in a really good link to it was Science Versus. There's a really good transgender podcast on there. Yeah. It's all about the science behind it, and how we've got to the point where now we accept that trans people just exist, and what happened when people try to force people down the wrong route. And it's a really powerful thing to listen to, and especially if you're trans, it can be quite upsetting, but it's really worth having as a resource to point people at. So I pointed them at that, and then my boss was like, well, I was going to ask you about that, because I don't think I was really passing as a bloke anymore. I went to drop my son off to school, and the teacher started addressing me as though I was the mum. I was like, no. At that point, I was thinking, oh, I really need to come out. But anyway, it was, but they were both fine, and they said any way that they can support me would be, you know, that's absolutely fine. But obviously, we'll be taking like the lead from me, because they've never dealt with this before. So it was really, really good. And then once I'd come out to them, and it was like, all right, then we need to come up with a plan of action. Then what we did was we come up with a letter that I was going to send to the whole company, including, because I work with the Met Office quite a bit as well, including everybody there, to say, right, I'm just changing, I'm off. Davy's going and Terry's coming back. So that was really good. And then I got a lot of emails from people that I work with, just saying, oh, you know, it's brilliant. It's like, you know, we support you, whatever. And that was really, really nice to hear. And it's been very, very positive. But the moment I did it, my employer just changed everything over. So it was like a kind of a seamless, right, from this point on, it's Terri. I did have quite a lot of trouble with the Met Office though. That took 26 days and it's still ongoing, and it's, you know, it's been pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really good.
Brilliant. That's really, yeah, that's really nice to hear. I mean, you know, so some people have so many difficulties, and it's really good to hear that your company is obviously really good. So you mentioned the link that you sent to your boss. If you send it to me, I'll put it at the end of this video.
Yeah.
And then if anybody wants to take a look at that, then they can. Okay.
Yeah,
that would be really nice. Yeah, thank you for that. Is there anything that you've sort of found over the years, either when you were younger or now, or, you know, whenever, that has been particularly difficult for you, if you don't mind talking about stuff like that?
No, I think obviously the whole issue like around my old name, I find that quite difficult sometimes, especially in work, for because there's been a few times where like people have dead named me and stuff like that, and I know it's going to happen, but it has been quite difficult. And there was an issue this week where there was an issue around my pass, and it just brings it all back, because you're trying to move forward and you're constantly dragged back. It feels like I've got this carcass around my legs. It's just dragging me along all the time. But I know it will change, but that's kind of been one of the hardest things. So yeah, but it's all been quite positive up until stuff. Really.
No, thank you for that, because I mean it's quite nice to hear an explanation of how dead naming actually makes you feel, and that's sort of like saying, you know, it takes you back. You know, that's a really good explanation, because some people are like, well, what's the point? You know, it doesn't really matter, it's just a name. But actually, no, you've got there's a lot attached to that, you know. So thank you for explaining that. That's really good.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't hate that I was that other person, because like there's a lot of good things from that. I got my kids, and, you know, I had a pretty good relationship with my ex-wife and everything else, and it's, you know, there was a lot of positive came out of it, but it essentially it wasn't really me. You know what I mean? It was, but it wasn't.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So I'm thinking about Pride events now. I don't know how many you've been to over your life, but have you been to Totnes Pride?
I have indeed. You
have? Yes, I thought you had. I thought I'd seen you there. Yeah. Thinking about sort of any Pride event, and it doesn't have to be Totnes Pride. I'm not sort of like going to force you to talk about Totnes Pride just because I'm involved with it. But no, any Pride event that you can think of. What's been your sort of like best moment?
I think it's the sense of belonging. Like, it's really strange, because as I said, when I grew up, it was kind of, I felt very isolated. Like there wasn't, you know, I was the only person up until I was 15 that I knew about that felt like that, and it was like, oh, it was really weird. It was just a very strange feeling. And then obviously I like started to explore those places, but then when I started to go to Pride and things, you realize actually it's flipping loads of people LGBT, right? It's one of the things that has really surprised me. And I think when you go to these places, it's all very positive, and you get to meet new people, and then you know you've got like your group of friends that you kind of see, and then there's lots of people that you don't see very often, and then you'll say, oh, hello, and then you catch up and stuff, and it's just a really nice kind of atmosphere, and it's all very positive, and it's great. I think, I mean, I've been to quite a lot of them. I've been to like the Cornwall Pride. I really like Cornwall Pride. I think that's a great one. It's normally quite sunny down there, and it's just a great day out. And then Plymouth Pride, I've only been to one because it always gets rained off. So I'm hoping this year I might actually. I know.
Oh, it's so sad. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I'm quite looking forward to that. Then Exeter Pride was a good one as well. I like that one. That's kind of, it feels a bit different to the other ones. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's always in that little gardeny bit, and it's kind of, there's bits all over the place, so you're kind of walking around discovering stuff. So that's quite nice. But I have to admit, and I know that I'm slightly biased, I do think that the Totnes Pride is the nicest one I've been to. It feels, I don't know, it's really, I don't know whether it's just because, like, you know, I'm quite close to like some of the people there or what, but it's got a nice feel to it in the same way as Totnes has got a nice feel to it. It feels a bit villagey, kind of, yeah, it just feels, it feels quite nice.
Yeah. Oh, thank you
Even
for
though
that.
it's not as big as the other ones, but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
probably
sure.
survive, so.
Yeah, thank
There we
you.
go.
Thank you. Okay, so going back in time again, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
I think it would just be that it's going to be okay. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm not completely sure I would change any of my life. I don't hate any of it. Like, there's been points when it's been uncomfortable, but like, you know, I like my life. It's like, it's been good. And, you know, I think it's just, if I had known that it was going to be okay, it would have taken a lot of the stress away, because you build it up into this massive mountain and you think, oh God, this is it. My world's going to end. The world's going to stop spinning. But it didn't. And it was just everything. I was thinking about it the other day. I just feel like, I don't really feel like anything's changed. If you know what I mean? It's just, I just look a bit different. And I think that's amazing. I just think, you know, it is going to be okay. Yeah. That's the only thing I would take from it, really.
Excellent, lovely. And lastly, what would you like to say to to young LGBTQ plus people now? What advice would you give them, do you think?
The advice that I would give them is, I spent a lot of time trying to fit to labels, and like, you think, you know, especially in the trans community, oh, you've got to look like this, you've got to be uber feminine, you've got to do the voice, you know, like a female voice, and you've got to have surgeries and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't want to do it, just don't do it. It's like, just be yourself. The important thing is just to be happy. It's your life. Just don't let all of the labels and all that define who you are. It's just like, just be yourself. That would be my biggest take from what I've learned. And if you're not sure, if you think, oh, I might be gay or I might be trans or whatever, if you think you might be gay or lesbian or whatever, then just go on some dates, go and meet some women, men or whatever, and just experiment. It doesn't matter. Well, obviously don't hurt anybody's feelings, but you know, it doesn't, you know, you're not hurting anybody, and that's part of exploring who you are. And if you're trans or whatever, then seek out some support groups, go and find like-minded people. It's, you know, the only way you're going to get to the bottom of these things is by just facing them. And sometimes, you know, you might not be trans, you might not be gay, you won't know until you've tried.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much for that. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Terry. It's been really nice talking to you.
Likewise.
Yeah. And I'm sure everybody's going to absolutely love watching these videos and your videos. So thank you very much.